What is the most profitable business in the world? Is it the business of making video games or movies, clothing runway models, diamond jewelry, selling out sports arenas, luxury cars, or the fuel for those cars? None of the above. It's the business of allowing you to turn on your lights and type on your computer. It's the business of dirty coal.
I have to be honest, as the world watches us today, I think our ability to take collective action is in doubt right now. And it hangs in the balance.
Global warming, toxic pollution, and the climate crisis could be significantly reduced, even reversed, with one simple policy decision made by world leaders. But something very big, dirty, and profitable stands in the way. A global business that is a toxic addiction, the coal mining and power plant business. These enterprises are as old as the Industrial Revolution. Coal mines and coal-fired power plants made robber barons rich. The coal business has made men toil deep beneath the earth and die before their time to keep this enterprise going, first making millions, now billions. The most profitable company on the planet, Gazprom, just got into the coal business big time. For their investors, it's a smart move. Running a coal-fired power plant is like winning the lottery every day for its owners. It's a license to print money. Coal-fired power plants are more profitable than gold mines, diamond mines, or oil wells. They defy regulation, are protected by politicians of all parties, and are tolerated by everyday people who don't know or refuse to know the facts. In the United States alone, pollution from coal-fired power plants will kill 13,000 people in 2010, hospitalize 10,000, and cause 20,000 heart attacks. Mercury pollution from these coal plants has prompted 49 American states to warn people to avoid eating fish. The demand for burning coal to produce electricity will blast away thousands of feet of mountaintop annually. This practice of literally blowing up mountains is the reason coal jobs continue to decline year after year.
Basically, mountaintop removal is a form of coal mining that is exactly what it sounds like. It's where they just blow off the tops of the mountains and then push the rubble into the valleys and crushing the streams and the rivers below. And it's an incredibly devastating form of coal mining. It leaves behind an absolute moonscape on these mountaintops.
In 2009, Daryl Hannah took part in a sit-in that blocked off traffic on a major highway in West Virginia. The protest against Massey Energy's practice of mountaintop coal mining led to her arrest.
First of all, to bring attention to the devastating effects of mountaintop removal, and to make a call for clean, renewable, infinite energy resources, which we have available to us now.
Well, I noticed that the towns were also boarded up. There was, no business in any of the towns. All the storefronts were closed, and people were really panicked because they were losing their employment. And I realized that mountaintop removal, this form of strip mining, is also responsible for 75% of miners losing their jobs.
Between 1948 and 2005, American coal mining employment plummeted from 126,000 miners to just 15,000 miners. These coal miners lost their jobs not to renewable energy or to a green jobs invasion, but to the same coal industry that has neglected worker safety for generations. Mountaintop mining is just the newest version of our toxic addiction to coal, but with fewer jobs for fewer miners. Again, profits before people for an industry built upon greed. Waste products from coal plants are loaded with carcinogens, lying in ash heaps, polluting drinking water, and sometimes sliding away. Tons of toxic sludge devastating entire communities.
There's no National Environmental Protection Agency regulations to address coal ash. And so what companies have been doing is essentially just dumping this into large pits next to those existing coal plants. And what we're finding is there seems to be some concentration of cancer clusters and a whole bunch of public health problems associated with these coal ash sites.
There is growing concern after a massive wall near a coal plant gave way earlier this week. An enormous amount of coal ash residue, sludge, has spread across entire communities.
Coal powers 40% of Los Angeles and makes 500 million social networkers complicit in toxic pollution every time they check their personal profile page. Coal-fired power plants and their devastation is our planet's big secret, rarely mentioned or disguised with terms like cap and trade and carbon credits. Burning coal for electricity is the biggest barrier to solving the climate crisis and reducing pollution. It's a toxic nightmare for the communities that are neighbors to coal-fired power plants. Yet despite countless scientific studies and international conferences and accords, coal is still king. Policymakers keep making excuses about why action can't be taken now to stop the global menace. It's always the same excuse. Coal can be made clean. There are no good alternatives. Renewables are complicated.
Green power comes at a terrible price. Every year, hundreds of thousands are horribly burned by the sun's rays.
Coal-generated electricity is needed for countries to grow their economies. Something that is not common knowledge is that clean coal is a myth. This is not an accident. The American Coalition for Clean Coal Energy, a front group for coal companies and utilities, spent $18 million on a high-profile ad campaign to sell the American people on the virtues of clean coal.
It's the resource that generates half of our electricity at a third the cost of most other fuels. It's the fuel that powers our way of life.
There is no such thing as clean coal. It is not just dirty, it is poisonous.
The truth is, carbon capture and sequestration is a pipe dream. There is not a single commercial coal-fired power plant in the world that captures and buries its carbon emissions. But the coal industry knew it didn't need to have a real solution. All they had to do was hype some vague new technology without actually changing a thing. Recently, things have gotten worse. Let's start in sunny Southern California, which is located next to the most abundant solar resources in the world. The city of Los Angeles owns interests in the Navajo Generating Station and the Intermountain Power Plant. These two plants emit over 36 million tons of CO2 pollution each year. The city of Pasadena, where the Rose Parade takes place every New Year's Day, and 4 other Southern California cities are also part owners of the Intermountain Power Plant in Utah. The mayors and city councils of these California cities say they want their citizens to get off coal. They support the Kyoto Accords. They want to be green. In Los Angeles, Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa began his second term by announcing that his city would be coal-free by 2020.
We're now moving to 20% renewables by 2010, 40% renewables by 2020. We will be a coal-free city by 2020.
But when it came time to take action, the Los Angeles City Council refused to raise electricity bills, even slightly, to pay for clean renewable power so that Los Angeles could get off coal.
The city officials are very good at making green speeches, but when it comes to voting for the green stuff needed to fund renewable energy and getting off of coal, they're out to lunch. And so you can use whatever word you want. The lack of political courage is perhaps the kindest way.
While the coal plants keep on running, the politicians continue to make excuses. But how do you make excuses to Native American children living on the Navajo Nation lands, an area the size of Ireland? These Navajo children live downwind from the Four Corners coal power plant in northern New Mexico. In 2008, the United Nations International Expert Group meeting on Indigenous Peoples and Climate Change received the following testimony. Emissions from 5 coal-burning generating units at the Four Corners power plant drift with the wind to surrounding communities. These include nitrogen oxide, carbon dioxide, mercury, and sulfur dioxide. The pollution in this area is said to be 10 times worse than the city of Los Angeles. Dirty coal. It's the planet's toxic addiction. But there is a price to be paid by families and children all over the world. Coal is deadly on every level. It is dangerous to mine, harmful to burn, and it pollutes the atmosphere with sulfur dioxide. And coal ash, the byproduct of burning coal, contains the heavy metals mercury, cadmium, lead, and arsenic. Coal ash is often stored in deadly slag heaps that can ooze forth in toxic landslides, making communities uninhabitable. Despite these obvious dangers, much of this toxic addiction remains unregulated and undersupervised. With the ever-present danger of coal ash close to homes, even close to schools, families again pay for the absence of political courage. It is common sense not to spray poison in your home or drop arsenic in your water, yet this is how the coal industry treats the planet. Our addiction to coal is extremely dangerous and reckless, regardless of the distant climate threat. China perhaps poses the greatest challenge to ending the planet's reliance on coal. In 2007, China and the United States both emitted 2.7 billion tons of CO2, the greenhouse gas that contributes most to human-generated global warming. China now gets 80% of its electricity from burning coal. As a result, Chinese cities often sit under a toxic ocean of smog. Each year, China mines 3.3 billion tons of coal, and there is a human price to pay. In 2007, 3,800 Chinese miners were killed in coal mine accidents. Coal has become a permanent reality of daily life in China. This year, a major highway was gridlocked as heavy trucks laden with coal lurched towards coal plants. This traffic jam lasted 3 weeks. China has now passed the United States as the world's biggest energy consumer. Over the next 15 years, China plans to build over 1,000 gigawatts of new electricity plants. That is equal to the entire electricity generation of the United States currently in place. If China continues to rely on coal at its current pace, our planet will face a potentially irreversible overload of greenhouse gases. Considering the fact that China has an estimated 4 trillion tons of coal reserves, we have much to worry about.